Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the long-awaited Bills Roundtable. We are back. Okay, last week didn't do it because we already knew business was going to be taken care of. And there's a lot of us here. In fact, I think all three panelists agree that we're feeling pretty confident going into week 2. But it's back. Do us a favor, smash that like button on your way in, subscribe to the channel, and turn those bell notifications on as we dive right into it. We have a new face. Thomas, what's going on, man? How's life?
Life is great as a proverbial free agent of sorts. Things are good. Can't help but love starting 1-0. Definitely a difficult game, but excited to chop it up with you, gentlemen. Kevin and I have quite the history, as he's been huge supporter of me since day one, being a podcaster. But excited to get to talking with you, Dan, and whoever might join the conversation. Oop, Dan, I think you're muted.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Nice new mic, by the way, folks.
I like it.
Finally joined the world. Right over there. I had no idea how sensitive this little guy up here was.
Yeah, it's sensitive.
But our guy, Kev, what's going on, man? Talk to me.
Pleasure to be back, man. Talking Buffalo Bills. We don't have to talk about the Patriots or the Jets tonight. So yeah. I'm looking forward to maybe the two actual contenders of this division.
Mm-hmm. So you're telling me that you weren't a fan of the Monday show?
I enjoyed it, man. No, it
gets under your skin, bro. It definitely gets under your skin.
No, I appreciate Colby.
Yeah. He's the man.
He's realistic. I mean, 6 wins is not crazy for the Patriots. So whatever. I think they could. They have a spunky D.
6 wins already, man. We have our first super chat coming in. Y'all should live stream together on this channel for some division games. Get your popcorn ready. Listen, man, I know that all of us are absolutely thrilled about this game. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Let us know where you were tuning in from. And I have to give a giant shout out right to our sponsor of the day, and that just so happens to be BetUS. And you know what, guys? I'm not going to lie to you. When I look at something like this and I see that the Buffalo Bills are 2-point underdogs, vast majority of sports books are automatically going to give the 2 points right to the home team. But I'm not going to lie to you, man. For some reason, I have no idea why vast majority of the media outlets, a lot of Dolphins fans, are suggesting and thinking that we are going to just get blown out by this team. And I understand that there was certainly some concerns defensively from the Buffalo Bills, at least in the first half of last week. But I'm just not seeing this. I am not seeing that this is any different from what we have known from the Miami Dolphins. I always like telling people, I'm saying this, out of all of our key contributors last year, because we played without Matt Milano for like 12 plus games, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde very rarely were 100% playing together. Trey White wasn't out there in the first place. All of our lead contributors are back on this defense. You still have Sean McDermott. A lot of question marks on how exactly Bobby Babich is calling plays. I think we'll have a better understanding this evening. But starting off with Thomas here, should we feel any different about this matchup than we have felt for the past couple of years? Talk to us.
I mean, the only thing that would really concern me is Josh's hand. I mean, if we're being completely transparent, that's the only thing. I mean, because if you look at the Bills, and I tweeted about this a little bit ago, Josh Allen is 10-2 versus the Dolphins in his career. And in that 10-2, and I'm going to give you these stats real quick just because it's ridiculous. He has 3,363 yards passing, 110.7 passer rating, 66 completion percentage, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 638 yards rushing, and 5 touchdowns. That's almost as good as most people have in a season. This guy did it in 12 games versus the Dolphins. So if you don't have a Josh Allen that you normally are relying on, especially with that left hand, that's concerning because you know the Dolphins have potency on offense. I mean, Tua is what he is. Whether people don't like him, whether people underestimate him, he's a very, very accurate quarterback who's great with timing-based offenses. They do a great offense in terms of spacing. And if we're being completely transparent, they've got great weapons. Whether Achane and Mostert are both playing or neither are playing, they've still got Waddle and Hill. So that's going to be of concern. But if Josh Allen can still run the offense with the same level of competency and precision that he does every other year, no, I don't. I'm not concerned. And it's not to be a Homer Bills fan. I know people are going to say I'm biased, but in all reality, I think the Bills are and have been just the better team. I mean, if you look back at a couple matchups when they lost to them in Miami a couple years ago in week 3, you're talking about a game where the Bills were, I think they started and played 75% of their day active roster. They had, I mean, all types of injuries. Stephon Diggs at one point had 2 IVs in each of his arms, and they still only lost by 2 points. So it takes pretty much hell and high water to take down Josh Allen. And if you're being honest, there are some quarterbacks that just have teams numbers. Look at Aaron Rodgers and the Chicago Bears. It was literally a daddy and son situation. So if you're being fair, I think, what the Bills did last week in the first time with only two series of Josh Allen play in the preseason, they looked pretty darn good on offense. I expect the same today.
Now, Kev, tonight, right? I mean, a lot of people have been expressing concern about Josh Allen's left hand injury. I thought it was a little fishy at first, particularly because he got x-rays directly after the game, didn't hear anything, and then he had to get an MRI the following day. Still haven't heard anything, at least from what I have seen. And then in practice, we saw him with the glove. I was talking to I saw what Banged Up Bills had to say. Same thing with Thigh Doc, where he was suggesting that he probably had a plate under it. It could be a middle hand issue. Do you see this really playing a factor much tonight? Because I've seen a lot of people trying to overreact and say this is significantly going to affect handoffs, or this is going to sort of diminish the Josh Allen that we're used to seeing. What are your thoughts on this?
I think the pain tolerance issue. I mean, I have it on pretty good authority that there is something going on with the hand in terms of what possibly could have been broken in there. I'm not exactly sure how important it is. But as Josh Allen says, the left hand's a pretty far distance from the right hand. Luckily, he's going to be slinging the rock. I mean, if teams are going to play 60% too high against them, it's going to run the ball. So that's just what it's going to be. Up double from what teams are running 2 years ago against Josh Allen. Was really good against the blitz. So if you're going to run too high and he's going to take the profit, it's going to be a long day, and he's going to absolutely be not affected at all between 4 and 8 yards. It's not going to be in effect. Rocket arm, Dan. We're not really worried about the skill set slowing him down. Could it be a pain tolerance issue on 12-yard runs? Possibly. He's not going to be able. I don't know if we'll see the tush push today. That would be one where I think may be taken out, where the Bills were they ran it 4 times against the Dolphins at the final week of the year in the AFC East championship game last year. So that is a game play that's probably out of the playbook for tonight, but the long practice or the 10 days apart should make that hand heal up nicely. Yeah. And he just dominates against the Miami Dolphins. We'll see pretty early on how much it affects him, but it's going to be minor places in my opinion.
Yeah. See, it's not so much his level of play, but more so on those scrambles, or God forbid that he ends up getting sacked, or he does end up making a play and he falls on it the wrong way. Yep. Because it wouldn't be completely out of the world where the Buffalo Bills have postponed surgeries right before. So I'm not sure, worst case scenario, it truly is fractured and they're just trying to let him play it out and hopefully it heals on its own. But God forbid he falls on the wrong way this evening and we're without our quarterback for a couple of weeks. I could be freaking out about nothing. Thomas, what do you think about this hand injury? You did touch on it briefly during the first take, but how much is this going to affect Josh tonight?
I don't, again, it's going to come down to handoffs going a specific direction. Outside of that, if he's, they always tell you in football, and it's kind of just common knowledge, when you're running on the left sideline, you put the ball in your left hand. That's going to be tough. He's just going to have to figure out a way to mitigate that issue. Be very careful. I'm sure the hand, he's probably going to get shots before the game. The hand's going to be taped up pretty well. Yeah. There's probably going to be AC tape between the 2 middle fingers that were having the issue. Very similar to what an offensive lineman would deal with, So as long as he can grip that thing, and I'm guessing probably the reason why you're wearing the gloves is a little bit better grip, because if there is any swelling, which you want to hope that the swelling has gone down, because there's going to be some increased swelling when you're flying. There's going to be increased swelling because of humidity in Miami. So as long as that's all good and go, I think we should be fine. Again, I think the big thing at the end of the day, you saw what the Bills offensive line did last week. Albeit, Arizona's defensive line isn't great, but if we're being fair, Miami's didn't really look good either. I mean, the Jaguars had over 150 yards rushing on the ground with Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne. I'll be honest with you. I like Ray Davis and James Cook a little bit better. The offensive line for the Bills has been very good to start the season. The right side of the line has looked really good with Osiris Torrance and Spencer Brown. So if I'm going to lean into anything, lean into the pass, because you know what? If they play up, take deep shots over the top. Josh's right arm, just like Kevin said, still works very good. Still the best in the game. And if you're looking at past history, Josh's air yards against Miami have been very good. And listen, love Javon Holland. I think Javon Holland is top 3 safeties in the NFL right now. He is so damn talented. But listen, I love Jordan Poyer. The Bills, I know Dolphins fans want to sit there and tell me all about Jordan Poyer. I know Jordan Poyer. I love Jordan Poyer. Jordan Poyer is going to go on the Bills Wall of Fame one day. He's not going to it in Hard Rock Stadium. It'll be in Buffalo. But let's be fair. He's not Jordan Poyer of 2019. He's Jordan Poyer of 2024 into 2025. He's slower. What you're getting is a guy with an incredible brain with a body that's not what it used to be. His coverage grades from this past week were not impressive. And yes, he's going to be playing in the box, but if I'm the Bills, test him. Test them early, test them often. Obviously, you're going to worry about David Long, who's a very good linebacker for the Dolphins. You're going to have to worry about Zach Sealer in the middle, but they don't have Christian Wilkins anymore. You've got Jalen Phillips, who got a sack, but he's not 100% to this point. So how effective is he? Emmanuel Ogbah played, 80% of the snaps last week. And then outside of that, it's kind of a big drop-off. My big question mark is, or the one person I'm going to be looking at to be competent with Josh's, lack of using his hands, is Calais Campbell in the middle. So if all things being equal, and I kind of went off on a tangent, I apologize, but
no, I
think Josh, I think Josh's arm is still good. I think he'll be okay at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. I mean, listen, I'm very excited to see what this offense can do. And I mean, I think that we already understand what they are going to do. They are going to pound the rock. It's, in my opinion, I wouldn't be surprised if like 55% of the plays at scrimmage are a run attempt from James Cook and also Ray Davis. Surprisingly enough, I do like the under for Josh Allen's sort of rushing yards tonight. I really do. I think that Joe Brady realizes the significance of this injury, how he doesn't want it to have any setbacks, and I think it's going to be a big game for both of them. But now we take a look at this Miami Dolphins sort of offense. I've heard so far that Devin Achane is going to play. In my opinion, I think that's absolutely idiotic. You take a running back who already has a significant injury history, and you're going to throw him out there week 2 by itself, right? I mean, he was one of the leaders last week when it came into all receiving yards. In my opinion, I largely think that he is just going to be out there for a distraction for the most part. Maybe a couple of screen attempts on his way, but I think we're probably going to be seeing a lot of the rookie in Jalen Wright, and then also Wilson, who went off last week. So the Jaguars ended up running a lot of cover 1 against the Miami Dolphins, and it was relatively effective. What do you think we're going to see from this Buffalo Bills defense tonight? Maybe some dime package, like having as many DBs out there as possible in coverage and just relying on Bernard. Kevin, talk to me. What should we expect from this Bills defense tonight, since there's so many question marks on the Dolphins run game this evening? What do you think?
Bills always will come out and guard against the deep pass. They do well against Tyreek Hill every time they play. One thing you need to mention is that the Bills will generally allow Miami to run on them. They've done it every single matchup. You saw Achane really effective last year in that AFC Championship game, in AFC East Championship game, and he was effective. Raheem Mostert has gotten the best of them at times, depending on the season and the year. So it's good to see him out in terms of like his effectiveness for the Bills defense. Should be back relatively quickly in terms of his injury. So the Dolphins should have him back quickly. But Achane, he can only be so effective. Did you see the injury stats on Achane, where he's only gotten a few targets when he's questionable? So we'll see if that trend continues. If he's going to be more than just basically just a decoy within certain sub packages here tonight. And if they're really going to rely on Jeff Wilson to be the main ball carrier. But I think the Bills are going to absolutely clog everything up. They don't have a tight end. They don't have a third receiving option. Didn't even get a catch out of their third receiver. So the Bills are going to do everything they can to cloud coverage, quarters coverage. They're going to run a lot of different tricky combo zones. And then the Dolphins are going to combo with zone beaters. They're going to combo with Devin Achane out of the backfield in a kind of a screen capacity. Those got a little bit last week, at least especially in the first half. So you're going to see a little bit of that. But let's talk about the Dolphins defense for a second here. They were awful against the pass against Jacksonville, including all their advanced metrics were not good. Actually, against the pass last week, 29th. So DVOA said that they were a complete mess against the pass. One of the only teams worse were the Cardinals. So the Bills are going to have everything. And, to Thomas's point earlier, could have been Poyer was a little bit to do with some of that situation. I think they have some issues on the boundary. Jalen Ramsey made a really great play at one point, but it wasn't his best performance, as well as I didn't think Fuller played particularly well. Kader Kohu did not have a great game, but Holland saved the day, knocking the ball out of Travis Etienne's hand. Game's over if fumble doesn't happen. So it's a huge play. It's essentially one we saw Poyer do at the goal line in the AFC divisional round against the Chiefs last year. Essentially similar type of play. Game's over if Etienne does not fumble that ball. So very interesting to see, but that defense right now is underperforming in the tunes of, I think, 23rd DVOA after last week. They're lucky to escape with the victory, especially with that kind of defensive performance. Bills wasn't the best, but at least right in the middle of the pack, 16th DVOA. So we're going to see what the Bills have, but will they run a lot of the biggest thing for the Dolphins? Are they going to run a lot of that cloud shell coverage, cover too high? And will Josh Allen take advantage of it? But Dan, not looking good with their first pass defensive performance against what I was one of the worst teams in the league against wide receiver ones. We had Aaron Schatz on the show yesterday. They are the worst against receiver ones. And last week, Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis were getting fairly open at easy rates. So I think that's going to be a big difference. And then themselves not really having any second or tertiary options behind their big two. So I think the Bills have figured out a way to at least limit Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle at times. And the Bills are going to be rolling in Christian Benford and Rasul Douglas, a combo that have worked mighty well for them right now. Yeah. Separation scores, some of the best corners in the league right now. And Cam Lewis is going to be there to help stop the run. You don't need him an extraordinary amount against the pass, with them not having a huge weapon beside the two boundary receivers.
Now I look at matchup advantages, and so I see quite a few going in the Buffalo Bills' favor, right? Like, I absolutely love this defensive line against their offensive line. I understand that they ended up finishing, I believe, top 5 in PFF somehow. I'm not sure if those numbers are skewed based off of how fast that Tua just gets the ball out.
Who, Dan, their offensive line?
Yeah.
Okay.
So with that, but I'm looking particularly, I'm salivating particularly like on Austin Jackson, particularly with pass coverage, everything along those lines. But when it comes
they were fourth in pass protection last week. The Bills were third.
So explain it to me when it comes into it, right? Like, when it comes to those grades by itself, would him getting the ball out fast enough skew those numbers potentially? Or did they really just like overperform?
It's about win rate. So it's about their one-on-one matchups more than it is anything. Okay. So a little bit, I could say, definitely always helps. But in years past, the Dolphins offensive line has struggled in that metric. So it's more about that. I mean, the Jags had a pitiful performance in the D line. The Bills actually had a really great day. They were dominant, top 5 in all advanced metrics on both sides of the ball in terms of their offensive line and defensive line trenches metrics. So really great to see David Edwards being one of the best guards in the league last week. We'll see.
He was my biggest concern, dude. He was my
player on the offensive line last week.
He was my biggest concern.
Neither bookend allowed a pass rush win. The only one that people point to was the hit on the face and on the horse collar against Allen. Other than that, because that play was a flag, they did not allow another win by a defensive end last week. And then David Edwards didn't either. They had dominant performance against the pass last week.
So is their pass rush a concern at all with any of the matchups that you're seeing? Thomas, talk to me.
No, not really. I mean, like I said, Jalen Phillips had a sack this past week, as did Calais Campbell. They had 3, allowed 3. But if we're being fair, no. You're talking in the past. First off, you're going against Josh Allen, who is inherently going to be one of the more difficult quarterbacks to sack as it is. And then you're asking a defensive line that last year didn't do well and has gotten worse this year. Like, listen, I know Dolphins fans want to believe that they're better this year because of Mo Kamara or Chop Robinson. Whatever, it's fine. You could believe all the factoids you want in college perceptions. That's fine. But There's a reason you guys got rid of Emmanuel Ogbah because he didn't do well with your last DC, but now he's going to do better with Anthony Weaver. Fine. I'm here with it. Jalen Phillips isn't 100%. Love Jalen Phillips. Again, when I talk about players, it's not because I'm hating. I'm just being realistic. Like right now, Greg Rousseau is on an upward trajectory where Jalen Phillips was. Jalen Phillips is still coming off of an injury. Whether you believe it or not, he's not 100%, I'm sure. When he is, he's one of the best in the NFL as a young defensive end. He's not there yet. So my biggest concern is Zach Sealer and Calais Campbell in the middle. And if we're being fair, the interior of our defensive line or offensive line is one of the better points of our offensive line. They did very well. Osiris Torrance, David Edwards, and Connor McGovern have been very good. They were good last year. They're good to start this year. So, no, not inherently concerned about that situation. I just think if you're going to look at this Bills team, I think, and I'm reading a lot of the comments that are coming through just because I enjoy it.
Chirping, bro.
Yeah, and listen, I love it. I love the heat. I love the intensity. AFC East battles are the best because it brings out all the talk that you could possibly imagine. Listen, first off, I got to say something. There's this perception the Bills don't have any weapons. You guys are going to get introduced to Khalil Shakir tonight, and I'm very excited about it because Khalil Shakir was the #1 rated catch percentage wide receiver in the NFL last year. Mm-hmm. He made some pretty darn good safeties in Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker look really stupid last week. I'm pretty excited to see what he could do against your guys. But to your defensive ends, I'm not concerned. I mean, yes, there are some really good guys. Calais Campbell, the dude's like, 50 years old and still playing at a high level. God bless him. And I'll be honest with you, I love Calais Campbell, not only as a Walter Payton Man of the Year, but what he did for Tyreek Hill and, a guy that is first time and checking on his teammate. That's the type of stuff you want to see. He is cream of the crop. That's why people love him. And I do too. He's been good everywhere he's gone. I wanted the Bills. In fact, you probably find tweets. I wanted Calais Campbell on the Bills. I thought he would have a perfect fit for this team. But no, I'm not super concerned with the Miami Dolphins defensive line. They could prove me wrong, but they haven't yet. And all the talk, all the Dolphins fans in the chat here and every year, it's always like, we're going to send the Bills back in a body bag. Okay. With a W,
where is it coming?
Because it hasn't happened yet. So
exactly.
Let's go with it.
Exactly. Where is it coming from? It's like 48 straight games where we haven't lost by more than 6 points, and they're going to just roll out and beat us 50-10 tonight. Give me a damn break. We're talking about matchups here, right? What's one you're absolutely salivating over? What's one you're absolutely salivating over that you're looking at it and you're like, oh my God, this guy is going to break records. He's going to break the hearts of Miami Dolphins fans all across the country.
Can I go
Kevin,
first?
What? Oh. Please, Thomas, go ahead. Who is the guy? What is the matchup you're salivating over tonight?
So there's a guy 2 years ago for the Dolphins that was on a incredible upward trajectory by the name of Kader Kohu, who last year really was not very good. Yeah. I mean, really. And he is going to be going against a guy named Khalil Shakir, who in the slot is proficient at route running, has some of the best hands, contact balance, probably better than almost anybody in the NFL, and is super heady of a player who Dolphins fans should know, who destroyed him every year, Eric Moulds. Trained with Eric Moulds this offseason and the past offseason. I'm excited to see what him and Dalton Kincaid can do against a guy like Kader Kohu, who, I mean, last year you saw Stephon Diggs had a pretty darn good touchdown when Kader Kohu couldn't wrap him up, and he ran down the sideline uncontested. So I'm excited about that matchup because I think you're talking about a guy, and I'm super bullish. I've been bullish all offseason since the end of last season. I think, and I've said this before, you can laugh at me in the chat. I really don't care. I think Khalil Shakir has the chance to be the next Amon-Ra St. Brown. Very good slot receiver, has as good a hands as almost anybody in the NFL, has some of the best contact balance. And I'm telling you, man, you watch him, it's not being crazy because he was like this at Boise State. There isn't much the guy does bad. It's one thing to be steady Eddie, but he's getting better at all the little crafts that you have to be to be a damn good receiver. And he's doing this now when he's getting an opportunity, and he looked really good last week. They didn't throw the ball a lot. Josh had 232 yards passing. When he gets more of an opportunity, they start opening up this playbook and they start really needing him. I'm telling you, it's lights out.
The next Amon-Ra St. Brown, man, you're getting me fucking jazzed up right now. Kevin, matchup you're salivating over right now.
couple, right? So to kind of pick off of what Thomas was saying, it is going to be the matchup of Jordan Poyer and Jordan Brooks against the Bills tight ends. I just don't think that they're going to be able to match up against both of them. There's going to be wins all over the field, especially if they're going to go to that 2-eye shell. That middle of the field is going to be wide open. They're not going to know if the Bills are going to do a sprint draw. They're going to hand off to James Cook. That matchup is very nice to me. They weren't able to really do much last week against top options. So I'm looking forward to the tight ends against that particular combo. And then more importantly, Ed Oliver going against, in my opinion, what overproduced last week in the interior of the Dolphins. I like their tackles. I think their tackles are fine in Austin Jackson and Taron Armstead. But I don't believe in much in Aaron Brewer and Robert Jones. So I do believe that Ed Oliver is going to be a focal point. Didn't do much last week. That's fine. But him and Daquan Jones against the interior, Liam Eichenberg as well, the interior of that Dolphins defense. The Bills win there. I think it's going to be a very nice day. If the Bills can't win there, the Dolphins may be able to do more than I'm anticipating. But that combo of the Bills' defensive tackles against the interior of the Miami offense is one that I'm liking right now.
And so I'll tell you what, I would probably have to agree right with the middle of the field. And I've been telling Dolphins fans and everybody all week this. I'm like, dude, we're talking about two linebackers that struggled tremendously in pass coverage. Now, about 3 or 4 years ago was pretty decent, but for the past 2 years, you've seen some slight regression. But Jordan Brooks is terrible. It is absolutely terrible when it comes into pass coverage going into it. So, I mean, I hate to say it, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is a death by 1,000 paper cut sort of pass attack, and it's all just going to be bullying them right in that overall zone. Obviously, need to watch for Holland, right? Definitely need to watch out for Holland. He is a ball hawk. Last week, he ended up saving the entire game for the Miami Dolphins in the first place. But I mean, that's how you take advantage of this defense, is right in the middle of the field. And Ramsey was getting cooked by a damn rookie last week. I know I do want to say, right, that there was rumors that he was hurt. I thought he was just holding out for his contract. And then that next day he got his contract and he came out, but he didn't really look like the same Jalen Ramsey. And I'm not trying to hate on Brian Thomas Jr. I wanted him for the Buffalo Bills. I'm not going to lie to you. He was my favorite prospect coming out of the draft, but it's that middle of the field, boys. It's that middle of the field, which I think is going to be absolutely dangerous. Now, weapons that weren't necessarily utilized last week. Obviously, we saw that Dalton Kincaid was almost taken out of the game. He was getting the Stephon Diggs treatment last week from the Arizona Cardinals. And then, surprisingly enough, Curtis Samuel really wasn't much so really utilized within week one. I'm not sure if they're trying to ease him back because he was going through that injury. Some thought it was a turf toe, etc. Are we going to be seeing some Curtis Samuel this evening, or do you still think that we're trying to ease him back from that injury that he had during the offseason? I'm going to start off with Kevin with this one.
I think you'll see a little bit more of him tonight. I think they're easing him back, so it's going to be. I think they can implement all these guys that they're feeling like, maybe even Mike Edwards and Cole Bishop, as soon as next time they play in 10 days. So they're playing Monday Night Football next time, so there's a lot. It's basically a mini bye, or even more than normal. So I do think you'll see some implementation then. But Curtis Samuel played really well. His separation score was around 6 yards in all the routes that he ran. So I do think that that's going to show that he seems fine. Josh Allen, on his only real sack fumble, missed him. It's fine. I mean, Josh, you can't literally go 100% completion percentage, but that was one that would have helped Curtis Samuel's numbers a little bit more. And I think that he'll be utilized tonight, especially with the middle of the defense, like you just mentioned, in the pass coverage in the middle of their field between Poyer and Brooks. And then a couple, Holland's going to be their only weapon, and they're going to have to deploy him wherever they see fit, wherever they want him to go. So he's going to have a lot of responsibility tonight. But when it comes to when you're looking at David Long, not a great coverage guy, but was this third best coverage player on their team last week. And he's barely over, basically around average. So Kader Coe, who struggled, he's going to have a long day. Jordan Brooks, Jordan Poyer. There's definitely some issues when it comes to coverage. And I think Curtis Samuel is going to be it just depends who Josh Allen is feeling the matchup benefit is going to be. So one of these days, it could be Curtis Samuel. It could be tonight. He'll get more snaps, though, for sure. But could it be a Keon Coleman day, or is he going to see a lot of Jalen Ramsey? Well, remains to be seen. But they struggle against receiver ones. Let's see what happens.
Hey, man, let's see what happens. And all right, listen, I don't want to end the show with having negative energy. So don't worry, we're gonna wrap it up with like some predictions, final score, like final hot takes. But have to talk about this one. We're all excited about matchups that we think the Buffalo Bills are going to have in favor. Let's talk about matchups that we don't particularly like. Something that could spike our blood pressure a tad, if you will. I'm going to start off with Thomas. Thomas, what's a matchup you don't particularly like that you think that if the Dolphins were intelligent, they would attempt to leverage?
I mean, if we're being honest, whether it was the Pittsburgh game, the Cardinals game, they ate our edges up. I mean, they really pressed getting to the outside and quick. And if you're talking about what the Dolphins do well with motion, the ability to, create leverage and kind of push the extreme, they're going to try to stretch us from sideline to sideline. And that's big. I mean, listen, I'm call it like it is. The Dolphins have speed that is unlike almost any team. I don't know if there's another team in the NFL in its history that could stand toe to toe with what the Dolphins have with Waddle, Hill, Mostert, Achane. Like even Robbie Chosen is really fast. Whether he's not very good or not, he's fast. They've got a bunch of dudes that are quick, and so that that's one way to really stress this team out is on the edges. I think that's something that the Bills have to be really concerned with. Last week, for the first series of the game, they had Taron Johnson as a pseudo third linebacker because they don't trust Dorian Williams. I mean, we're just being honest. They don't. They had him and Dorian and, Terrell Bernard kind of in just, a big dime, but as a linebacker. And it was working. It worked really well. As soon as Taron went out, those runs to the outside really got exposed. So I will say, and this is where this concern could be changed. Do they bring in Mike Edwards? Do they bring in Cole Bishop to platoon that and be that big dime, be that third linebacker? Cole Bishop has the size. I mean, he's not too much smaller than Terrell Bernard, if we're being fair. Has the ability sideline to sideline with all the speed and if we want to look at things in historical context, he is literally almost Jordan Poyer to a T. He plays that physical, very in the box style defense, as does Mike Edwards. You got guys that could get in there and help platoon with Dorian Williams where you don't have to worry about the edges. But that's going to be my biggest question mark. Is it is it Cole Bishop? Is it Mike Edwards? Is it Cam Lewis, who did really well in the second half last week? That's going to be my biggest concern as to can they clamp down on the edges.
And so what you got?
Cole Bishop is active tonight, so just so that everybody knows.
There we go.
It's definitely interesting because in college, dude was an absolute dog when it came into run defense. Some question marks about how like aggressively like he hit his angles and like he would miss a tackle a time or two, but nice. So the actives were just released, is what you said?
Yeah, and Achane is active, but they have Mohamed Kamara as inactive, obviously.
And Jalen Wright as well.
Yep, so he's Jalen Wright.
He's inactive.
Yeah, inactives. I'm talking about inactives. Raheem Mostert, Mohamed Kamara, Ethan Bonner from them. Malik Washington as well. A guy I really like from a slot receiver. He will produce in Miami as a slot receiver here soon. I do think he's a talented player. I liked him possibly as the Bills. But so we'll see if we see Cole Bishop, if he's part of this at all, or if he's just going to be on special teams. We'll see if he has any play in this. But Dorian Williams is a guy that could match up well in this specific game. I don't think he matches up well in certain games with the speed. And the ability to stop the run he may match up well. He doesn't have a huge threat over the middle to worry about. That's going to be the job of the Bills' corners and safeties to take away the receivers. So could be a good Dorian Williams game as compared to others when maybe he's tasked with even like a Mark Andrews or an Isaiah Likely running around. That's not going to be the greatest matchup in the world for him. So we'll see how that all plays out. But Dan, I'm worried about the speed of Achane. He's playing. They're going to run a lot of screens. The Bills got exposed a little bit of that, at least in the early portion of the game. So that is of much concern. And Jalen Waddle, good player against the Bills specifically. Yeah. Good zone beater. When Tyreek Hill was getting locked down at times last year and throughout the times playing Sean McDermott's defense, Jalen Waddle steps up. I remember the game where the Bills played and the games they lost. The Bills played all their backups, including, Ingram. And Jalen Waddle was the only one to produce against backup level defensive backs. So he's always a concern. His speed, what he can do, finding that soft zone. He's going to be a concern for me here tonight in general for his ability of what he's able to do against, a zone coverage.
Yeah. It's definitely the speed that's going to keep us up. But at the end of the day, I feel like we're all still pretty confident. So let's take a transition over into final score predictions. One hot take for the game, because I know that we're all just getting ready to start watching some pregame action. I need to get ready for my live game reaction myself, but starting off with Thomas. All right, Thomas, give me your final score prediction and a hot take before we send these guys out. And shout out to everyone in the chat, by the way, as well. 267 in total rocking with us right now, guys. Definitely highly recommend that you subscribe to both of these guys in their individual channels. I'm going to put them in the description. They're going to be here each and every single Thursday chopping up some Buffalo Bills news. Thomas, talk to me. Final score prediction?
I'm going to say 38-21 Buffalo.
Ooh.
I think Buffalo wins quite comfortably. I think Josh Allen, if we're being honest, listen, I know Dolphins fans want to sit there and say that we're delusional. They every year say that they're going to roughhouse us, and it never happens. So if delusion is a drug, they are literally taking it in excess. I think the Dolphins are a very good team. I think last year was their best shot. Their team isn't better this year. In fact, I think it's not as good this year. Their big signing was OBJ. He ain't here. They've got a great tandem of wide receivers. And Tyreek Hill, even when he played on the Chiefs, minus 13 seconds, really, Sean McDermott has kept him in check. Jalen Waddle, same thing. They've kept them both in check. So, I think the biggest part is, unless they go off and the Bills have no answers for them and Josh Allen turns into Trent Edwards, I think Josh Allen has another good day statistically, which he's done every single time against the Miami Dolphins. Is what it is, folks. You don't like it. You know what? Until it changes, I'm going to keep riding with the hot hand.
Absolutely. I love it. Kevin, what you got, man?
I just think these Thursday night games can get sloppy, especially with limited game planning time. I mean, I think the defense is usually pro defense. At times you see offensive performances of lopsided scores. I'm not going to predict a lopsided score either way on this one. I think it's going to be lower scoring than you would like in one of these games. I'm going 24-14 Buffalo. I just think it's going to be similar in that AFC East championship game last year, 21-14. So, I mean, I'm going to go with something along those lines where I think that both teams are going to struggle a little bit on offense at times when we're expecting fireworks, and go in the under. I mean, you're talking about under 40 points, in my opinion. I think the over-under 46. I like the under in these Thursday night games. It's not going to always hit, obviously. Life's too short to take the under, but on Thursday night football, I like the under. I don't know. I just have this feeling that the Bills may try to run the clock out. The Dolphins may try to run the clock out and get it out of this healthy. So I think there's that element for two potentially postseason teams that are like, either of us really can't have any injuries. It may not be as fireworks as the next time they play, which is in the middle of the season, which is weird. But unfortunately not at the end of the year where the Bills play back to basically the Patriots back to back. But one thing I wanted to correct, Jordan Brooks is awful in coverage. Whoever said that is just completely wrong. He's allowed 13 career touchdowns, 1,500 career yards, and has an NFL passer rating of 116. So I'm not sure which film somebody's watching that thinks Jordan Brooks is a good coverage guy.
So they're just watching the TD Finstock streams, man. That's what they're doing. Anyway, Marco comes in, says Miami loses home field advantage with it being a night game, and the Miami sun won't beam down on the away side.
How hot would it have been today, Dan? With the humidity, it's like a heat warning. Could they have even played?
Forget about it. I mean, I'm sure that they would have.
Yeah,
right?
Dangerous.
I'm sure that they would have. But listen, we all know that stadium is going to be 65% like Bills fans. We know that. All right. It happens each and every single year. I see Dolphins fans on Twitter all the time saying, guys, season ticket holders, please don't sell your tickets to Bills fans. For the love of God, it doesn't happen, baby. It happens every single time. I think Sean McDermott should call the defense. Nothing against Bobby Babich, but I think Sean McDermott is a better caller when it comes to defense. That's an interesting take. I feel like we haven't seen enough, right? I feel like we haven't seen enough from Babich. We haven't seen enough of his defense for me to, I don't know, like hop on that train. What do you guys think?
I think he did. Listen, last week was a first time for him in a very big moment. And you know what? Think about it. Preseason, there's only 3 games. They have very limited time together as a defense. A lot of his players didn't play together. Cohesiveness and communication on the back end is not the same. So it's a work in progress. And what he did, allowing only 3 points in the second half.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Listen, Kyler Murray, people forget, was started at 1.11-0. He's still a very good quarterback. His literal underlying metrics are very good for a quarterback who, quite frankly, for more often than not, hasn't had a ton of talent around him. His offensive line's been bad. So I think Babbage did a good job adjusting, which is what you want to see in a second half. That's what Sean McDermott does. I think he did fine. He knew what to do. He knew when to dial up pressure. He knew when to rotate in and get good guys to really win on positive matchups. I'm fine. I like Babbage. And you know what? Listen, everybody wants to sit there and talk about Sean McDermott making mistakes. As soon as they get somebody else in there, now they want to put him back out there. Like, listen, you want your cake and eat it too? Let's see what Bobby Babbage has got more than just one game, because I think he could really surprise y'all.
And so what about your thoughts on that, Kev, real quick?
Yeah, struggled in the first half, but also was missing Milano and Taron Johnson early in the game. Like, that's a huge adjustment. Like, you could argue that's 2 of their top 3 or 4 defenders, depending on how you want to rank these guys. Definitely 2 of their top 5. So I mean, it's a big miss. I mean, obviously they knew about Milano. It took them 3 weeks to adjust for Milano. At least this year they had 3 weeks or 4 weeks already. But Taron Johnson is not something I expect. Cam Lewis came in and adjusted well and had a really good game against the run. They struggled in the first half, straight up. Like, we can call it what it is. It's the first time calling plays. They struggled. Kyler Murray was doing everything he wanted, but the biggest impression that he made was these adjustments at halftime. Whether Sean helped him or not, doesn't really matter. He made these adjustments, 80 yards and 3 points. Ultimately, against a really high-flying offense, Thomas is right. Arizona's going to push for a wild card spot. That offense is good, especially that offense was decent without Marvin Harrison Jr. Let's see what it can do if he ever gets going. James Conner's criminally underrated. They have one of the best rush offenses in the league. And quite frankly, they can make plays. So we'll see what they do down the stretch. I think that they're going to push in a weak NFC for one of those wild card spots. We'll see if that ends up happening, where NFC West is one of the best divisions in football. They're going to sneak some wins. The Bills struggled against them in the first half, but I do believe what they were able to do in the second half, defensively more than anywhere, was super impressive. We'll see if they have a matchup against Tua tonight with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill.
And so I do want to remind Dolphins fans that Tua is an absolute statue right behind that offensive line. He's not necessarily a Kyler Murray with the ability to run and extend
plays. That's where the Bills got beat.
Out 40 yards on the ground by himself. So personally, I think we did our best at being able to contain a mobile quarterback. Is what it is. Tonight, we're not seeing that. Anyway, folks, my final score prediction is going to be 28-20. For the love of God, I really hope that it is not going to be another game that spikes my blood pressure, has me pacing back and forth. But more than likely, it's Buffalo Bills football. So there's at least going to be a certain portion of this game where I'll be very stressed out. I just hope by the end of it, I can sit back, relax, and be able to appreciate it. But regardless, folks, we really appreciate you for tuning in to the first episode of the Bills Roundtable for the season. We're going to be looking for a 4th member. Normally it's Mario from #sports. He had work this evening, but don't worry. There's going to be 4 of us here eventually.
What about his tweet? Are you bringing up his tweet?
Oh, his tweet? Yeah.
And we got to do our hot takes too.
Oh yeah, we do need to do our hot takes. That's right. Mario #sports. Let's see. There he is. This is going to kill you guys right now. He ended up sending this. This is our other host right over here. This is what Mario had to say, folks.
That's fine.
Losing by 2 touchdowns tonight. Sorry, y'all.
When you out bookmark your likes, you know that's
yeah.
That's a ratio take.
Those are some situations. Joshua Richardson, what's up, fellas? Cole Bishop is active tonight. Josh Allen will play better than last week. Bills won 31-20. Josh Allen will have 4 touchdowns, and Cook will. I absolutely love it. Let's talk about hot takes. Talk to me, Thomas. Hot take.
I'm gonna get flamed for this, but I don't care. Josh Allen will be wearing a baseball cap in the 4th quarter.
Ooh,
if you want a hot take, that's my hot take for tonight.
Is one.
That's as if you don't like it, I don't care. Guess what? Listen, I've said this before. When it comes to playing the Dolphins, it's a game of the 20s. I don't care what you do between the 20s. I really don't care. Your game is based on spacing and leverage. When you get into the 20 or inside the 20s, your offense evaporates because it's all based on spacing. That's why most of your touchdowns are 50, 60, 70-yard touchdowns, because you're using the Waddle and Hill speed, which I'm not going to fault you. It's incredible. But when you get inside the 20s, that's when Tua has a lot harder time, because he has to make more decisions out of structure. Whatever. It is what it is. Like I said, fourth quarter, get ready for the baseball cap.
Dude, you are pumping me up. Josh Allen in the baseball cap in the fourth quarter. Wouldn't be the first time that it happened against the Miami Dolphins, so I'm not sure why I'm shocked. Kevin, hot take.
The Bills are going to roll in a lot of Dalton Kincaid today. Everyone's saying he didn't get any targets. We saw the stills and we saw the footage of him getting triple covered, not double, triple covered throughout portions of the game last week. Why wouldn't Josh Allen take his power fit out elsewhere? If he was trying to force it to Dalton Kincaid, it would have been a Stephon Diggs situation all over again. We would have heard about all Josh is trying to do is find what his number one target is. We would have heard all the other side of the coin. Why is he going force feeding Dalton? It would have been, they don't have any other weapons. That would have been the conversation. He did what he was supposed to do, getting double and triple covered. You don't throw to him like straight up. Even Mike Evans, whoever you want to consider as one of the best receivers in the league. You even hear Baker Mayfield inside the huddle say, if he's doubled, I'm not throwing to him. So it's similar mentality of Dalton Kincaid. I think they're waiting to use a game plan for him tonight, as he was able to absolutely roast them last year in the finale of Week 18. That's just what I'm thinking, Dan. I just overly think that Dalton Kincaid is going to roast. We just talked about the linebacker and safety coverage. Javon Holland's a good player. They're going to have to double him again, and if they do, maybe a lot of 11 personnel comes out where the Bills were successful. That's where you'll see Curtis Samuel in that 11 personnel. If they're running 12, you're not going to see Curtis Samuel, though. So that's what it comes down to. 12, no Curtis. 11, you're going to see a lot of Curtis. But Dalton Kincaid's going to have a day just when people think that he's not a part of the offense.
That is absolutely beautiful. My hot take is that not only will Josh Allen not throw an interception tonight, his first interception won't be until Week 4 against the Baltimore Ravens.
Wow. You guys heard it here both first. Of you have some hot takes, man. Mine's weak.
Hey, man. No interceptions tonight, baby. And not Week 3 either. Week 4 is going to be the first one. Right now, he doesn't lead the league in turnovers. And they don't even bother me. It's just the brain rot community that just loves telling me about it all the time. I really hope that this man finishes with like 10 or less this year. I don't care, quite frankly, but just to shut them up would be ideal. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Bills Roundtable. Let's go around to the panelists, have them say their farewells, and we'll get you out of here. Thomas, what you got?
Guys, as you could see, my shirt says Charge. I have my screen behind me. Feel free to give my show a watch on the new channel, Charge Buffalo on YouTube. Just getting it started. As I said in the onset of the show, I'm a free agent, so getting everything rolling, so I appreciate it. But make sure to hit me with a follow on Twitter at @TheThomasDeLoss. And, listen, if I'm wrong, feel free to get in my mentions tonight. I'm here for the banter. Go Bills.
Yeah. Hey, listen, guys, definitely give him a follow on Twitter and then also on his brand new YouTube channel. He's going to be on my channel quite a bit as well. Oh, shit. Sorry, guys. Kevin, farewells, man. Talk to us.
Josh Allen's 4-0 on Thursday Night Football, 6-0, including Thanksgiving. Will he keep the track up? You can find me at Kevin Masseri. I've been on the channel before all last year, as well as you can catch me on Smackdowns.
Smackdowns, baby, exclusively on the Autograph app. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's great on Mondays. So at Kevin Masseri, you can check me out with my co-host Kevin Syracuse Wednesdays, built in Buffalo at 8 p.m.
Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to yet another edition of the Bills Roundtable. And Dolphins fans, get ready for this ass whooping. See you next week on Thursday.